Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and Diablo 4. Going into early access, we're going to be trying to blast through those levels as soon as possible, and to do that, we've been planning out our builds and synergies so that when we're in game and we're going, we just don't have to stop and work things out. On that note, today I'm talking about the Necromancer and our plans for that, with this insanely strong bone-based build, with a variety of bone-based abilities, but all centered around the powerhouse that is the Bone Spear. Through this build, we have fantastic synergy between high crit, high essence generation, while also continually making enemies vulnerable and generating a load of corpses to benefit from. So let's just jump into the build. As you can see here, we have a calculator, so we can see the skill tree and work it all out. This just happens to be the d4builds.gg one, because it works well for video purposes, but anyone you use is fine. We're going to start by going through all the talents on this, and then we're going to talk about the Book of the Dead and aspects at the end. As always though, we start with our basics, and we're of course going with bone splinters as a bone-based build. We're enhancing a lot of our bone damage, so having our basic as a bone one is also a great idea. This is going to be a great generator of essence as we spam out 3 bone splinters. We'll enhance it for additional projectiles, and out of the 2 options we're going for initiates bone splinters because this is going to provide 8% critical strike chance for 4 seconds if we hit the same enemy with these at least 3 times, so a nice burst of crit damage regularly when using this, which is going to synergize and come in later. But now let's go to our core skill, Big Shock. It's going to be 5 out of 5 on Bone Spear as soon as you really can. This is our main damage ability where we conjure the Bone Spear from the ground and send it piercing through enemies. Of course, we're going to enhance it though, making it break into 3 shards when it's destroyed, much like the basic shards, and then Supernatural Bone Spear, which is what's going to make the first enemy hit by the Bone Spear vulnerable for 3 seconds. Later when we talk about the aspects, we're going for one that's also going to make the enemies hit beyond the initial hit vulnerable as well, spreading vulnerability through this one ability super well. This part of the tree is actually quite tough because you absolutely want imperfectly balanced as soon as possible. It's going to make us deal 15% increased damage at 3 out of 3, which is insane, at the cost of 9% increase on essence on our core skills. So they cost more, but they deal way more, and that is awesome. This is something to pick up once we start really getting essence generation in the build, so we will absolutely come back for this as we're leveling. It requires 1 level of unliving energy, which is not a problem. It just increases our essence max cap by 3. And also in this tree we have Hued Flesh, which at 3 out of 3, our damage has a 12% chance to create a corpse at the target location, doubling that against bosses. This is really important in general because we want to spawn as many corpses as possible regularly, but also in single target boss fights, having a way to generate corpses is going to keep us going, keep our minions going, which is important. Down in the next tree, this is when we're going to unlock Corpse Explosion, which we're not hyper leveling to 5 out of 5. It's not like a key component of this build. The bone damage is, but this comes with some really nice utility. When we enhance it, we can increase the range of it, but we're going for the blighted version, which makes the explosions leave this goop circle on the ground, dealing shadow damage over 6 seconds. This means with very little investment, we're able to create these pools of damage, giving us really nice ticking damage in AoE. Also in this tree is the Skeletal Warrior Mastery, which is going to enhance the damage and life of our warriors by up to 45% at 3 out of 3 there, which is a major spike in damage. Also here for passives, we have Grim Harvest and Fueled by Death. Grim Harvest means whenever we consume a corpse, that generates 9 essence. This is absolutely vital and why we need to be spawning lots of corpses. Every time we do that, we get a nice bit of essence, and we are absolutely dumping essence in this build and want as much as possible. Further, whenever we actually consume a corpse, we just get 9% increased damage for 6 seconds with 3 out of 3 Fueled by Death, so it's just perfect synergy, and we're not even having to heavily invest to get the benefits of this corpse explosion. Down into the next tree though, this is where we're going to pick up Decrepify. Placing a curse on an area, enemies afflicted will be slow by 40%, which is a lot, and also deal 20% less damage, which is very nice. But we really care about this for its enhancement. While the standard enhance is nice, giving them a 10% chance to be stunned, giving us some AoE CC, the Abhorrent Decrepify is what this is all about. Enemies hit have a 15% chance to reduce your active cooldowns by 1 second. And as we hit big packs of enemies with Decrepify, this is going to massively reduce our cooldowns. Also in this tree, we have another boost to our minions in the case of our mages this time, increasing the damage and life by 60%. That's massive. Finally, we have another passive in this tree, Death's Embrace, which is going to make enemies take 6% more damage from us, which is crazy as long as they're close. And we'll also deal 9% less damage to us, which will be nice later in the game. 6% extra damage just by being near them is wonderful. Moving on, we come to a next tree where we're not picking up abilities, but we're absolutely picking up as many passive effects as we can. As you can see on the bottom level here, we have so many ways to enhance our bone skills, and all of them are honestly insane. Starting with Serration, our bone skills have a 1.5% increased critical strike chance for each 10 essence you have. So the more you have at the time, you're going to get more crit. Crit is majorly important in this build because of a main aspect we're going to be running where our essence regens every time we get a crit. So this is really nice synergy between that. Next, let's look at rapid ossification. Every 100 essence you spend reduces the cooldown of all bone skills. This is major because we have longer cooldowns like our ultimate that is a bone skill. Next is Avulsion. Your bone skills deal 18% increased critical strike to vulnerable enemies. As you know, we're making enemies vulnerable through this build, so we've just got 18% increased crit on those vulnerable enemies. Then 3 out of 3 finally for Compound Fracture. Whenever we do critically strike 10 times with bone skills, our bone skills deal 15% increased damage for 5 seconds. So through this build, we're going to be critting constantly, meaning our bone skills deal way more damage. More damage to vulnerable enemies, the cooldowns get reduced, and it's all more and more likely to happen because of the build. So this section of the tree is a major power spike for sure with those passives. But now we come to the last section. Firstly, the ultimate, where of course we're going with Bone Storm as a bone build. This causes bones to spawn around you and your golem, dealing damage over time as we stand near them. As we enhance this, it'll give us some damage reduction by 15%. And finally, Supreme Bone Storm, our critical strike chances increased by 20% while this is active. So not only is it dealing great AoE damage as a bone ability and all that, but it's just increasing our crit by 20% while it's on, which is major. For our major passive though, we're of course going for Ossified Essence for our bone skills, dealing 1% increased damage for each point of essence that we have above 50 when casting. So we want to generate as much essence as we can and be a powerhouse because of that, and the more we have when using abilities, the more damage it will do. Outside of that, we have a bit of a tough selection of 4 awesome passives down here in this corner. As you can see, I've gone for Inspiring Leader at 3 out of 3, because if we've been healthy for 4 seconds, our minions just get 12% attack speed from that, which is a really nice kind of passive to pick up. And then we have 1 level in Death's Defense, because this means our minions cannot lose more than 75% of their max health from a single damage instance. It prevents them from being one-shot completely, which is awesome for a single point. But with our talents shown and explained now, let's talk about the Book of the Dead. For our warriors, I'm going with Reapers for the nice AoE ability, but we're going for upgrade 2, which means they have a 15% chance to carve flesh on damage, which will spawn a corpse. This is of course synergizing with whenever we pop a corpse, we're going to get essence and increased damage, which is major, so having another way to spawn them is wonderful. Then we're going with mages in cold with upgrade 1, pretty standard because this means each time a cold mage damages with their main attack, you gain 2 essence, so an essence generation from your minions is wonderful too. For our golem, we're running this in iron as a sacrifice. That's because we'll deal 30% increased critical strike damage at the cost of not summoning a golem. As our bars are full of abilities, we don't really have the ability to do this too, and since we're critting constantly in this build, 30% increased damage on that is insane. This is what's leading to the absolutely hilarious damage of the Bone Spear. Alright, so there's 2 aspects I want to talk about as well. There are many aspects that are going to be great, but these 2 are the ones that I think are most important. Splintering aspect is the one that makes Bone Spear's primary attack make enemies hit beyond the first hit vulnerable for up to 2.5 seconds. Meaning our Bone Spear hits them and makes them vulnerable, and then it pierces through, and the enemies behind are all made vulnerable as well. The bone shards that happen from the Bone Spear will also deal 50 to 100% bonus damage to any vulnerable enemy and pierce through them as well. So it makes it a vulnerable spreading ability that pierces through everything and is really powerful in AoE at that. Then we have Aspect of Torment, meaning our critical strikes with bone skills increase your essence regen by 20 to 30% for 4 seconds. We're critting constantly in this build, and that means we're generating essence constantly as well. Hopefully through all of that, you've seen just how much synergy this build has between its essence generation, the high crit, the high damage on the crit, and spreading vulnerability in effective ways. We think this build should make for a very powerful Necromancer experience as you're leveling, so I hope this helps you in your own leveling experience. As always in Diablo 4 though, we might get like a legendary drop for a different core ability, and that may change my plans while I have that. There are many ways to have a very strong leveling build with Necromancer, that's for sure. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.